Meghan is not invited to my upcoming Santa Barbara event. I have no involvement with the Epstein matter. Prince Andrew and Meghan do. She made an advance toward me. I did not respond.
Could it be that Harry's wife is casting a look in the direction of Kevin Costner? We know that Harry's in the sustained devaluation, which means it's open season for her to find a potential replacement for him. He's painted black, apart from when he has the occasional respite period, and the golden period returns and he gets his pink pods tickled for a little while. Outside of that, he then plunges into the sustained devaluation once again, which means that she, if she so wishes, can fraternize with somebody else, and she doesn't care whether it impacts upon him.
Is Meghan Markle Harry's wife or his mother? Because sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference between the two because she very much mothers him. We see this most recently in their appearance at a charity event in Santa Barbara where she's literally picking up an award and handing it to him so he can walk another 2 steps and give this award to Kevin Costner.
Tonight, reports are emerging from the very heart of that Californian dream that suggests the fairy tale has not just ended. It has been shattered into a million pieces. The story we are about to discuss is one of raw human drama, of alleged betrayal at the highest level of celebrity, and of a prince, now a world away from home, who is reportedly broken. The name at the center of this earth-shattering new scandal, not a royal courtier, not a member of the British press, but a titan of Hollywood, Kevin Costner, and the accusation that Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, has been involved in a secret affair, a clandestine relationship that has now been exposed, leaving her husband, Princeharry, in a state of complete and utter shock. He is, according to sources, stunned, devastated, and in tears. Let's be very clear, these are allegations. But they are allegations that are spreading through the elite circles of Lowe's angels like wildfire, and they paint a picture so damning, so completely in line with what critics have been warning of for years, that it simply cannot be ignored. So how did we get here? How does an icon of American cinema like Kevin Costner become entangled in the already messy saga of the House of Windsor's prodigal son? The story, as it's being pieced together by insiders, is a classic tale of Hollywood networking. Meghan, in her relentless and one might say, admirable quest to build her new American empire, has been making connections. She moves in circles of power, influence, and immense wealth. And in the exclusive, tight-knit community of Santa Barbara and Montecito, Kevin Costner is royalty of a different kind. Reports allege that a meeting, initially framed as a professional courtesy, a discussion about potential projects or charity alignment, blossomed into something more. Costner, a man known for his stoic, old-school charm, was reportedly captivated. And Meghan, well, Meghan is known for her ability to captivate. It is perhaps her single greatest talent. We are told that the alleged affair was a masterclass in discretion. Secret meetings, carefully worded communications, all conducted under the nose of a prince who, it seems, was more occupied with his legal battles against the British press and finding his purpose than noticing the drama unfolding in his own home. The exposure, sources claim, was almost accidental, a slip of the tongue from a member of Costner's own circle, overheard by someone with connections to the global press. It was not a malicious leak, but a careless whisper. And sometimes, a whisper is all it takes to bring a house of cards tumbling down. And what a house of cards it has proven to be. A house built not on the solid bedrock of duty and service, but on the shifting sands of celebrity, interviews, and multi-million-dollar content deals. To understand the magnitude of this alleged betrayal, one must look at the price Harry paid to be there in the first place. He gave up his country, he gave up his family, he gave up his military titles, the very core of his identity for so much of his life. He did all of this, he told us, for love, for the safety and happiness of his wife and family. He traded the respect of a nation for the applause of a California talk show audience. And now he is reportedly left with what? Critics of the Duchess will, of course, see this not as a surprising turn of events, but as the inevitable climax of a long and calculated campaign. They will point to the beginning, the whirlwind romance, the speed of it all. They will point to the convenient narrative of a woman who claimed to know nothing about the royals, yet seamlessly navigated her way into the heart of the world's most famous family. Let us be clinical for a moment and examine the trajectory. Each step appears in hindsight to have been a strategic move. The initial charm, the grand wedding, the establishment of a victim narrative, the dramatic exit from the royal family, and finally, the monetization of their royal status in America. It's a strategy of breathtaking audacity. The opera interview, a performance of curated victimhood that set fire to his family relationships. The Netflix series, a multi-million-dollar exercise in settling scores. The book, Spare, where every private family grievance was laid bare for public consumption and commercial gain. Through it all, Meghan has been the director, the producer, and the star of her own show. Harry was, it seems, the most important supporting actor, the one who gave the entire production its legitimacy, its royal seal of approval. And now, with the brand established, with the connections in Hollywood solidified, is it so unthinkable that the supporting actor might have become expendable? One has to wonder, has Harry served his primary purpose? Has he successfully transitioned her from a cable TV actress to a global figure, and is his usefulness now diminishing? This alleged affair, if true, is not just about infidelity. It's about the very foundation of the Sussex brand. It suggests the us against the world love story was perhaps just the first act in a much longer, much more ambitious play. And this brings us to the most tragic figure in this entire reported drama, Prince Harry. The source who broke the news of Harry's reaction described a scene of pure desolation.
She's not going to go running town like a floozy. The reason being, she operates a facade. A lesser narcissist may well shag around like a dog with 6 dicks and doesn't care that anybody knows. They don't operate with facades. But the mid-ranger recognizes that such behavior is going to invite criticism, and criticism is a threat to control. And therefore, the narcissism will guide the mid-range narcissist to conduct affairs, but to do so on the down low, to behave in a more quiet fashion so as not to get caught out. They justify their behavior, but understand that other people will see it as wrong. They don't see it as wrong themselves. They just know that other people see it that way, and therefore it's better to avoid criticism because, as I mentioned, criticism is a threat to control.
This wasn't anger or rage. It was the quiet, hollowed-out despair of a man who realizes he has lost everything, based on a premise that may have been false. He is reportedly stunned into silence. The initial confrontation was not explosive, but heavy with a dreadful, dawning comprehension. Then we are told came the breakdown. Not shouting, but tears. The tears of a man who is, for the first time, truly alone. He is 3,000 miles from his brother, from his father. He has spent the last 4 years participating in, if not leading, a campaign of criticism against the very institution and family that was his lifelong support system. He is in a foreign country, surrounded by his wife's network, his wife's friends, living a life his wife built. And now, he is faced with the ultimate terror, that the one person he sacrificed it all for, may have betrayed him more deeply than anyone he left behind. Can he call his brother? Can he call his father and say, "You were right"? The humiliation would be unbearable. The path back is now a minefield of his own making. He is in effect a prisoner in the paradise he so desperately sought. A gilded cage indeed. This alleged infidelity isn't just a personal wound, it is a political and existential crisis for him. It calls into question every decision he has made since 2018, every bridge he has burned, every public pronouncement of his undying, all-conquering love. If the love story isn't real, what's left? A 39-year-old man with no clear role, a strained relationship with his family, and the dawning horror that he was merely a stepping stone on someone else's path to glory. If these allegations prove to be true, this is the end of the Sussex brand as we know it. The entire enterprise was built on the authenticity of their love story. That was the product they were selling. It was the justification for everything. Without it, they are just two celebrities. And in Hollywood, celebrities come and go. But a betrayed prince, a son of a king, a brother of a future king, that is a story of Shakespearean tragedy. The questions now are immense. What will Harry do? Does he stay for the sake of the children and live a life of quiet humiliation? Does he attempt the unthinkable, a return to the UK till between his legs, to beg for forgiveness from the family he publicly maligned? And for Meghan, what is her next move? In the ruthless game of Hollywood, will this scandal make her toxic? Or in a perverse twist of modern celebrity, will it simply make her more famous, more talked about? A woman who conquered a prince and then allegedly moved on. It's a narrative that in some circles might even be admired for its sheer, cold-blooded ambition. Prince Harry, the once beloved heir to the throne, the cheeky young royal who captured hearts worldwide, is tonight reportedly devastated beyond measure. Sources close to the situation describe a man unraveling. A man who has discovered that the life he chose, the woman he chose, may not have been what he believed it to be at all. The catalyst for this breakdown, Kevin Costner. Yes, the Hollywood legend. And the allegation is explosive, deeply personal, and utterly devastating. That Meghan Markle, the woman Harry gave up everything for, has been engaged in a secret romantic entanglement with the veteran actor. An affair conducted, allegedly, in the very community where Harry and Meghan built their supposed sanctuary away from the prying eyes of the world. But were those eyes ever really what they were running from? Or was it accountability, control? The inability to craft and manage their own mythology within the ancient walls of Windsor? Tonight, we ask the difficult questions. And the answers, I'm afraid, are deeply uncomfortable. Let us begin with the geography of betrayal. Montecito, Santa Barbara, the exclusive enclave where billionaires, tech moguls, and Hollywood aristocracy retreat from the chaos of Los Angeles. It is here that Harry and Meghan purchased their sprawling estate, their palace in paradise, their fortress of solitude. Except, of course, it was never truly solitude. They conducted interviews from there. They filmed their Netflix documentary there. They lived very publicly while claiming to seek privacy. Kevin Costner owns property not far from the Sussex estate. A man of immense wealth, cultural cachet, and a certain kind of rugged American masculinity that the British monarchy, for all its pomp, cannot replicate. He represents everything Hollywood values: legacy, box office, gravitas. And in the world Meghan sought to conquer, Kevin Costner is the equivalent of royalty. According to emerging reports, the connection between Costner and Meghan began innocuously enough. Charity events, industry functions, the kind of networking that is standard in those circles. But sources now claim that professional courtesy evolved into something far more intimate. Meetings became more frequent, communications more personal. and Harry perpetually distracted by his various legal vendettas and his endless quest to settle scores with.
Now, what's so interesting about this interaction is just like this very mothering gestures that she has towards him. She doesn't treat him as if he's her husband or that he is an independent person. No, she treats him as if he is a clueless child that she has to direct to do things.
The British tabloids apparently noticed nothing. Or perhaps he noticed but chose not to see, because to see would be to acknowledge that the foundation of his entire new existence was built on sand, that the woman he married, the woman for whom he abandoned his birthright, might not be who he thought she was. Denial is a powerful anesthetic until it isn't. The exposure of this alleged affair, we are told, came not from a tabloid sting operation or paparazzi surveillance, but from the Hollywood rumor mill itself. A trusted confidant of Costner's speaking too freely at a private dinner party. The comment was overheard, the whisper spread, and eventually it reached the ears of someone willing to make it public. That is how these things work in Los Angeles, not through scandal sheets but through social currency. Information is power, and sometimes someone decides to spend that power. When Harry was confronted with the allegations, sources describe his reaction as one of complete disbelief. Not anger, not rage, but the kind of quiet, creeping horror that comes when the scaffolding of your entire reality begins to collapse. He is said to have initially dismissed it as another unfounded rumor, another attempt by enemies to destabilize them. But as more details emerged, as the pieces fell into place, the facade crumbled. And then came the tears. Not the public tears of a man seeking sympathy, but the private, gut-wrenching tears of someone who realizes they have been made a fool. That every sacrifice, every burned bridge, every severed family tie may have been in service of a lie. Let us take a moment to consider what Harry has given up. He was born into one of the most famous families on earth. He was raised with privilege, yes, but also with duty and expectation. He served his country in the military, a role he reportedly loved and found genuine purpose in. He was adored by the British public, seen as the cheeky, relatable royal who brought humor and humanity to the institution. Then he met Meghan, and the trajectory of his life changed irrevocably. The speed of their relationship was notable. From first meeting to engagement in a matter of months, the wedding was a global spectacle, a fusion of British tradition and Hollywood glamour. It seemed at the time like a modernization of the monarchy, a sign that the institution could evolve. But then came the cracks, the complaints, the allegations of mistreatment by palace staff, the growing rift with the press, and finally the exit. Megxit, as it was dubbed, a dramatic departure from royal duties, framed as a necessity for their mental health and safety. They would, they said, forge a new path, a progressive, independent, financially self-sufficient life. Except, of course, they immediately monetized their royal status. The opera interview, where deeply personal and damaging allegations were made against the royal family, was watched by millions and reportedly earned them substantial sums. The accusations of racism, of neglect, of institutional cruelty set off a firestorm. Harry's relationship with his brother William, once close, was reportedly shattered. His relationship with his father, now King Charles, became strained to the point of near silence. Then came the Netflix series. 6 hours of curated grievance, of carefully edited home videos and emotional testimonials. It was meant to be their story told their way, but to many, it looked like score settling, a public airing of private family matters for profit. And then the book, Spare, Harry's memoir, ghostwritten but presented as his unfiltered truth. In it, he detailed private conversations, family disputes, and intimate details that royals simply do not share. He accused his brother of physical aggression. He criticized his stepmother, now queen consort. He laid bare the dysfunction of his family for the world to consume. All of this, he said, was necessary. It was his truth, it was his healing. And through it all, Meghan was portrayed as the victim and the hero, the woman who opened his eyes, the woman who gave him the courage to leave, the woman who loved him unconditionally. But what if that narrative was itself a construction? What if Meghan's interest was never truly in a quiet life away from scrutiny, but in leveraging the royal connection to build her own empire? What if Harry was not her partner in liberation, but her vehicle to relevance? These are harsh questions, they are uncomfortable, but they must be asked. Because the pattern, when examined objectively, suggests a woman of immense ambition who has consistently positioned herself at the center of power and influence. From her marriage to a British prince, to her cultivation of relationships with opera, with Tyler Perry, with the elite of Hollywood. Every move has been calculated to maximize her profile and her opportunities. And Kevin Costner, if these allegations are true, represents the next tier. A man with decades of Hollywood credibility. A man whose association could open doors that even a royal title cannot. In the cold, transactional world of celebrity, it would make a certain ruthless kind of sense. But where does that leave Harry?
Remember, the narcissism's job is to maintain control and nullify threats to control in relation to all those on the radar. Therefore, what it doesn't want to do is cause the narcissist to assert control over somebody by having sex with them, which would then, in the same moment, result in lots of people going, oh, look at that brazen hussy riding that guy in the back of the car. And everybody knows about it, because then that shatters the facade. Thus, with mid-range narcissists, where they are playing hide the sausage with somebody else, they will endeavour to do so in a manner whereby it's not detected.
He is now a man without a country in a very real sense. He has alienated his family. He has made enemies of the British press. He has publicly maligned the institution that gave him his identity. And now, if these reports are accurate, he faces the possibility that the one person he trusted above all others has betrayed him in the most intimate way possible. The tears, sources say, came in waves. The initial shock gave way to a deep, existential despair. Because if Meghan is not who he believed her to be, then what has any of this been for? What was the point of the exile, the public battles, the estrangement from his family? He is, according to those close to the situation, currently isolated, not physically but emotionally. He is in a foreign country, surrounded by people who are primarily Meghan's connections, her friends, her network. Where does he turn? Who does he trust? He cannot call William. The rift there is too deep, carved by years of public accusations and private resentment. He cannot call his father without admitting that perhaps the family he so publicly criticized was not the villain in his story after all. The humiliation would be crushing. And so he is trapped. In a beautiful home, in a beautiful climate, living a life that looks enviable from the outside, but may in fact be a prison of his own making. This alleged affair, if substantiated, does more than damage a marriage. It destroys the Sussex brand entirely, because the Sussex brand was never about charity work or documentary filmmaking. It was about love. It was about a couple so devoted to each other that they would defy the world. That was the story they sold. That was the product. Without that love story, what remains? Two celebrities among thousands. And in Hollywood, there is always someone younger, more interesting, more relevant waiting in the wings. For Meghan, this scandal could be terminal to her ambitions. Or, and this is the darker possibility, it could be exactly the kind of publicity that keeps her relevant. Because in the modern media landscape, infamy and fame are often indistinguishable. A woman bold enough to allegedly conduct an affair with a Hollywood icon while married to a prince. That is a story that will be told for years. It is scandalous, yes, but it is also captivating. And Meghan has always understood the value of being captivating. For Harry, however, there is no upside. He is the victim in this narrative, the man who gave up everything and received betrayal in return. It is a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions, a prince undone not by war or conspiracy, but by love, or what he believed was love. The question now is what happens next. Does he stay, endure the humiliation, and attempt to salvage what remains for the sake of his children? Does he file for divorce and face the public spectacle and financial battles that would entail? Or does he attempt the unthinkable, a return to Britain, a reconciliation with his family, an admission that he was wrong? None of these options are easy. All of them involve immense pain and public scrutiny. Harry, who sought privacy, will find none. Harry, who sought peace, will find only turmoil. And the greatest irony, he left the royal family to escape a life of duty and expectation, to live authentically. But in doing so, he may have walked into a far more manipulative, far more damaging situation than he ever faced within the palace walls. The palace, for all its faults, was predictable. It had rules, structures, traditions. It was suffocating perhaps, but it was stable. Hollywood has no such structure. It is a jungle where only the most ruthless survive. And Harry, for all his privilege, was never trained for that kind of battle. The reports emerging from Lowe's Angels are nothing short of staggering. Princeharry, the man who walked away from a kingdom, is said to be in a state of emotional collapse. The cause, an alleged revelation so personally devastating, so publicly humiliating that it has left him, according to insiders, completely shattered. Kevin Costner, the Academy Award-winning actor and Hollywood fixture, has reportedly exposed what sources are calling a secret affair with Meghan Markle. Let that sink in for a moment. The woman Harry married in a ceremony watched by millions around the globe. The woman he defended against all criticism. The woman for whom he severed ties with his own flesh and blood. That woman now stands accused of engaging in an intimate relationship with one of America's most respected actors, all while maintaining the facade of a devoted wife and mother. If true, this is not merely scandal. This is devastation on a scale that rewrites everything we thought we knew about the Sussex story. Let us start with the man at the center of this alleged exposure. Kevin Costner is not some tabloid creation or fame-hungry opportunist. He is a figure of genuine stature in American culture. From his iconic roles in films that define generations to his recent resurgence in prestige television, Costner represents old-school Hollywood credibility. He is a man of wealth, influence, and a certain dignified masculinity that commands respect. He is also a neighbor. His estate in the Santa Barbara area places him in the same rarefied social ecosystem as the Sussexes. In these exclusive communities.
It's one thing, sure, to put your arm on your spouse or to maybe, kind of move them along or something like that. We see Catherine and William do that from time to time. But this is totally different. She is like directing him. And then we also have, of course, her infamous polo incident where she's literally wiping lipstick off his mouth as if he's 5 years old.
Everyone knows everyone. Dinner parties, charity galas, environmental fundraisers. These are the settings where the elite mingle, network, and apparently where boundaries can become dangerously blurred. The timeline as it is being pieced together suggests that Meghan and Costner first crossed paths at a high-profile event focused on environmental conservation, a cause both have publicly championed. Initial interactions were, by all accounts, cordial and professional. Photographs from the event show them engaged in conversation, smiling, the picture of two public figures discussing shared interests. But sources now claim that what began as networking evolved into something far more personal. Private meetings, they say, began occurring with increasing frequency. Dinners at exclusive restaurants where discretion is guaranteed. visits to Costner's sprawling ranch property, justified if questioned, as discussions about potential collaborations or philanthropic ventures. Meghan, it must be noted, has always been extraordinarily skilled at cultivating relationships with powerful individuals. Her rise from relative obscurity on a cable television drama to becoming the Duchess of Sussex was itself a masterclass in networking and strategic positioning. She understood, perhaps better than anyone, how to move through elite circles, how to charm, how to position herself as indispensable. And Kevin Costner, for all his accomplishments and accolades, is still a man. A man who, according to those who know him, was genuinely taken with Meghan's intelligence, her charisma, and yes, her beauty. In the isolated world of celebrity, where genuine connection is rare and everyone wants something from you, perhaps he believed he had found something authentic. The question that must be asked, however, is what Meghan wanted from this connection. Was it genuine affection, or was it something more calculated? Access to a level of Hollywood that even her royal title could not guarantee, an insurance policy against the possibility that the Sussex brand might not have the longevity she hoped for, or perhaps simply the validation that comes from captivating a man of Costner's stature. We may never know her true motivations, but what we do know is that Harry apparently knew nothing. He was, as sources describe it, completely blindsided when the allegations first surfaced. His initial reaction was categorical denial. Impossible, he said. Not Meghan, not the woman who had stood by him through everything, not the woman who had sacrificed so much to be with him. Except, of course, the narrative of Meghan's sacrifice has always been questionable. She gave up her acting career, yes, but it was hardly a thriving one. She gave up her independence, but gained global fame, wealth, and a title. She left behind her life in Toronto, but moved into a palace. The sacrifices, when examined objectively, seem rather less substantial than the gains. But Harry believed in the narrative. He had to, because he had sacrificed things that were irreplaceable. His relationship with his brother, once his closest confidant and friend. His relationship with his father, complicated certainly, but rooted in genuine love. His standing with the British public, who had adored him for decades. His military titles, which he wore with pride and which represented some of his finest moments. All of that given up for love, for Meghan, for the promise of a better, more authentic life. And now, faced with the possibility that the foundation of that promise was rotten, Harry is reportedly falling apart. The exposure came, we are told, through Costner himself. Not maliciously, but through carelessness. A comment made to a trusted friend who proved less trustworthy than believed. The comment was repeated, the circle widened, and eventually the information reached someone who understood its value. When confronted, Costner apparently did not deny the relationship. Whether out of honesty or arrogance, he acknowledged the connection. And with that acknowledgement, the carefully maintained secret became undeniable reality. Harry's confrontation with Meghan is described by sources as harrowing. There was no shouting, no dramatic confrontation as one might imagine. Instead, there was a cold, terrible silence. The silence of a man watching his entire world disintegrate in real time. Meghan, for her part, is said to have attempted explanations, justifications, appeals to his understanding. But what explanation could possibly suffice? And then the breakdown. Harry, alone in a house that never truly felt like home, in a country that is not his own, surrounded by people who are not his family, simply broke. The tears came not from anger but from grief. The grief of lost innocence, of misplaced trust, of wasted years. Let us consider the totality of what Harry has endured to reach this point. He lost his mother at 12 years old, a trauma that shaped every aspect of his subsequent life. He served in Afghanistan, saw combat, lost friends to war. He struggled with mental health, with substance abuse, with finding his purpose within the rigid structure of royal life. And through all of that struggle, he eventually found, or thought he found, salvation in Meghan. She was supposed to be his redemption. The person who understood him, who valued him not for his title but for himself. The person who would stand with him against a world that had so often been cruel. She was his answer, his purpose, his future. To discover that she may have been using him, manipulating him, betraying him, is not just personally devastating. It is the destruction of his last remaining hope. If he cannot trust Meghan, then who can he trust? If the love that justified his exile was false, then his exile was for nothing. The broader implications of this alleged affair extend far beyond the personal. The Sussex brand, as it has been constructed since their departure from royal duty.
But what about Kevin Costner? Well, things aren't too rosy at Shays Costner because he is in a divorce situation with his wife. Kevin Costner is undergoing an ongoing legal battle. And it's been about 2 months since Kevin Costner's soon-to-be ex-wife, Christine Baumgartner, filed for divorce from the actor. But the couple's separation has already been rather painfully public and messy.
Is entirely dependent on their image as a united couple. Every interview, every documentary, every public appearance has reinforced the narrative of Harry and Meghan against the world. Their Netflix deal, their book deals, their public speaking engagements, all of it predicated on the authenticity of their partnership. If that partnership is revealed to be fraudulent, the entire enterprise collapses. Who wants to hear marriage advice from a couple in the midst of an infidelity scandal? Who wants to watch a documentary about finding true love when that love was apparently a lie? The commercial value of the Sussex brand could evaporate overnight. For Meghan, this presents an almost existential crisis. She has spent years cultivating an image of herself as a feminist icon, a woman of principle, a devoted mother and wife. An affair with Kevin Costner, while her husband deteriorates emotionally, destroys that image entirely. It replaces the principled activist with the calculating opportunist. It confirms every criticism her detractors have leveled against her for years. But here is the uncomfortable possibility that must be acknowledged. Meghan has proven herself remarkably resilient in the face of criticism. She has an almost preternatural ability to reframe narratives, to position herself as the victim, even when the facts suggest otherwise. Could she somehow emerge from this scandal not as the villain, but as a woman who found herself trapped in a loveless marriage and sought comfort elsewhere? Could she paint Harry as emotionally unavailable, damaged, impossible to reach? It would be audacious. It would require a level of shamelessness that most people could not muster. But Meghan has never been most people. She has consistently demonstrated a willingness to do whatever is necessary to advance her position. And in Hollywood, where scandal is often just another form of publicity, even this could potentially be spun to her advantage. Harry, however, has no such options. He cannot reframe this narrative in a way that benefits him. He is unambiguously the victim. A man betrayed by the woman he loved, isolated from his family, stranded in a foreign country with no clear path forward. There is no spin that makes this anything other than tragic. His options now are all terrible. He could forgive Meghan, attempt reconciliation, and live the rest of his life knowing that the world knows he was cuckolded and chose to stay. The humiliation would be unending. He could divorce her, endure a public and undoubtedly vicious legal battle, and face the prospect of being separated from his children, who would likely remain primarily with their mother in California. Or he could attempt to return to Britain, to apologize to his family, to admit that he was wrong about everything, and to beg for a place back within the fold. The humiliation of that option might actually be worse than staying. To face William after everything that has been said and done. To face his father after the accusations in Spare. To face the British public after years of criticizing the country and its institutions. Each option is a form of surrender, or acknowledgement that the gamble he took when he married Meghan and left Britain was the worst decision of his life. And yet, what choice does he have? He is nearly 40 years old, with no clear professional identity, no home country that truly wants him, and now, potentially, no marriage worth preserving. He is a man adrift, and this alleged affair may be the wave that finally pulls him under completely. The cruelty of this situation cannot be overstated. Harry made his choices, yes. He is an adult responsible for his own decisions. But he made those choices under what he believed were true circumstances. He believed Meghan loved him. He believed they were partners in a shared struggle. He believed the narrative they constructed together. If that belief was unfounded, if he was manipulated into destroying his life for someone who did not value him, then he is not merely foolish. He is a victim of a particularly cruel deception. And the world will watch his pain with a mixture of sympathy and satisfaction. Some will feel genuine sorrow for a man who has suffered so much loss. Others will see it as deserved consequences for his betrayal of his family and country. But all will watch because the fall of a prince is always a spectacle. Kevin Costner, for his part, will likely emerge from this relatively unscathed. Men of his stature rarely face lasting consequences for such scandals. He will issue a statement, express regret for any pain caused, and move on with his life and career largely intact. That is the privilege of being a powerful man in Hollywood. Meghan's fate is less certain. She has enemies now, powerful ones, who will seize on this scandal as vindication of everything they have said about her. The British press, which she has fought for years, will be merciless. And even in Hollywood, there are limits to what can be forgiven or overlooked. But Harry faces only darkness. The tears reported by sources are not simply about this alleged affair. They are about the totality of his loss. His family, his country, his purpose, and now, potentially, his marriage. Everything he built his new life upon has crumbled. The allegations that have emerged from the inner circles of Hollywood's elite are seismic in their implications. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, is said to have been conducting a clandestine romantic relationship with Kevin Costner, the veteran actor whose name alone carries decades of cultural weight. The affair, according to reports, was carefully hidden, meticulously planned, and executed with the kind of precision that suggests this was not a momentary lapse of judgment, but a sustained deception. And Harry, the man who gave up a throne for love, knew nothing until Costner himself, whether through carelessness or conscience, brought the truth into the light. The devastation is total. Sources describe Harry as inconsolable, cycling between denial, rage, and a grief so profound that those around him fear for his well-being. This is not the public Harry we have seen in carefully staged interviews or choreographed appearances. This is a man in freefall, grasping at anything that might slow his descent and finding nothing but air. To understand the magnitude,
even the People magazine piece about them seemed to highlight, and this is one that Harry and Meghan gave to People magazine, this story, seemed to highlight their separateness, that they are going in different directions, their careers are going in different directions, they're no longer salt and pepper. So all of a sudden at the Invictus Games event, all of a sudden we have to be salt and pepper. We have to be there together all the time, every day, holding each other, holding hands, being together. And
of this moment, we must go back to the beginning. Not to when Harry met Meghan, but to who Harry was before Meghan. He was, by all accounts, a man searching for meaning in a life that had been largely predetermined for him. The spare heir, the backup plan, the one who would always live in his brother's shadow, no matter his accomplishments or character. He found purpose in the military. Those who served with him speak of a man who genuinely loved being a soldier, who took the role seriously, who wanted to be judged on his merits rather than his birthright. His tour in Afghanistan were among the defining experiences of his life. He was, for perhaps the first time, simply Captain Wales, not a prince, just a soldier doing his job. But that could not last forever. He returned to Britain to royal duties, to the gilded cage that had always been his destiny. He struggled clearly and publicly with mental health. He acted out, he made mistakes, but through it all the British people maintained a deep affection for him. He was the relatable royal, the one who seemed most human, most vulnerable, most like us. Then came Meghan, and everything changed. The relationship moved with unusual speed. They met, they dated in secret, and within months the world knew. The engagement followed swiftly. The wedding was a global event, positioned as a modernizing moment for the monarchy, an American actress of mixed race marrying into the House of Windsor. It was, we were told, a sign of progress, of evolution, of a royal family entering the 21st century. But almost immediately, cracks appeared. Stories emerged of Meghan's treatment of palace staff, reports of grown men and women reduced to tears, allegations of unreasonable demands, of temper tantrums, of behavior that was, in the understated British way, deemed difficult. These were dismissed by supporters as racism, as the establishment trying to tear down a woman who did not fit their mold. Perhaps there was some truth to that, but perhaps there was also truth to the reports themselves. Perhaps both things could be true simultaneously, that Meghan faced prejudice and unfair treatment, and that she was also a demanding, difficult personality who struggled to adapt to an institution that has survived for over 1,000 years precisely because it does not adapt quickly. Regardless, the narrative was set. Meghan was the victim, the palace was the villain, and Harry increasingly positioned himself as Meghan's protector, the man who would not allow his wife to be treated the way his mother had been. The comparison to Diana was made explicitly, repeatedly, and apparently very deliberately. Then came the exit, the announcement that they would be stepping back from royal duties, seeking financial independence, splitting their time between Britain and North America. It was framed as a reasonable request for a more balanced life, but the palace, reportedly blindsided by the public announcement, saw it as a betrayal. Negotiations followed and the outcome was clear. They could leave, but they could not be half in and half out. They would relinquish their royal duties, their titles would not be used commercially, and they would forge their own path entirely. So they went to California, first to Tyler Perry's mansion, sheltered by Oprah's friend while they found their footing, then to Montecito, to the sprawling estate that would become their base of operations. And the operations began immediately. The Oprah interview came first, a broadcast event that sent shockwaves around the world. Allegations of racism within the royal family, claims of institutional cruelty, of being denied mental health support, of being abandoned and isolated. Harry sat beside Meghan, nodding, supporting, corroborating. He held her hand. He spoke of his fear that history was repeating itself, that he would lose Meghan the way he lost his mother. It was emotional, raw, and deeply damaging to his family. His grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, was still alive when it aired. She watched as her grandson accused her institution, her life's work, of racism and neglect. The interview achieved its purpose. It generated headlines for weeks. It positioned Harry and Meghan as victims who had escaped, and it likely secured them considerable financial opportunities. Netflix came calling with a multi-million-dollar deal. Spotify offered a podcast contract. Publishers offered advances for memoirs. The Sussex brand was born, and it was lucrative. But what was the cost? William reportedly felt betrayed, the private conversations and family disputes now public fodder. Charles, then Prince of Wales, was hurt and bewildered by his son's public attacks. The Queen in her final years had to endure watching her family torn apart on television, and Harry was complicit in all of it. More than complicit, he was an active participant. The Netflix documentary series followed, 6 episodes of curated narrative designed to elicit sympathy and reinforce the victim's status. There were home videos, intimate moments carefully selected to show a couple in love under siege. It was slick, professional, and profoundly one-sided. The royal family, bound by tradition and protocol, could not respond in kind. So the Sussex version of events became, for many, the accepted version. And then came Spare, Harry's memoir, released to massive commercial success and even greater controversy. In it, he revealed private conversations, described a physical altercation with William, criticized Camilla, and laid bare family grievances that most people would never dream of making public. It was described as his truth, his healing, his necessary unburdening. But it was also, undeniably, a betrayal, a violation of the privacy and trust that families, even royal ones, depend upon. And it was all done, he said, for his new family, for Meghan and their children, to build a better life, free from the constraints and cruelties of the institution. Every step of this journey, Meghan was there, guiding, supporting, encouraging. She was, in the narrative they built, his salvation, the woman who gave him permission to be himself, to speak his truth, to break free. But what if that narrative was itself a construction? What if Meghan's interest was never in Harry's healing, but in Harry's utility? A prince gives you access, credibility, and a story that can be monetized in ways an actress from a cable drama never could. He was the golden ticket, and she punched it repeatedly. This alleged affair with Kevin Costner, if true, suggests that Harry's value to Meghan may have been primarily transactional. That once the royal connection was established, once the deals were signed, once the brand was built, Harry himself became less essential, perhaps even expendable. Costner represents something Harry cannot provide. He is embedded in Hollywood in ways that take decades to achieve. He has relationships, credibility, and power in an industry that Harry is still very much an outsider in. If Meghan's ambition is to establish herself as a major player in American entertainment and philanthropy, Costner is a far more useful connection than a disgraced prince nursing grudges against his family. The mechanics of the alleged affair are, according to sources, almost clinical in their execution. Meetings were scheduled during times when Harry was occupied with other matters. His lawsuits against British tabloids, his various patronages and causes, his polo matches. Meghan would cite meetings of her own charitable work, business development, and she would go to Costner. His ranch, secluded and sprawling, provided the privacy that Montecito could not. There were no neighbors peering over hedges, no risk of paparazzi in the hills. Just two people, engaged in whatever it was they were engaged in, believing themselves safe from discovery. But secrets in Hollywood never remain secret forever. Someone always knows. A housekeeper, a driver, a personal assistant, and someone always talks. In this case, it was apparently someone in Costner's inner circle, speaking more freely than they should have at a social gathering. The information spread, as it always does, and eventually reached someone who decided the public had a right to know. When the story broke, Harry's initial response was complete denial. Impossible, ridiculous, another fabricated scandal designed to hurt them. But then details emerged that could not be easily dismissed, timelines that matched, corroborating witnesses. And finally, a conversation with Costner himself, who apparently confirmed the relationship when pressed. The confrontation between Harry and Meghan is reported to have been devastating. Not a screaming match, but something worse. A cold, factual discussion where lies fell apart under the weight of evidence. Meghan, according to sources, attempted to minimize, to reframe, to explain. But how does one explain betrayal of this magnitude? Harry's response was not anger, at least not initially. It was shock, a complete inability to process what he was being told. Because if this is true, then everything is a lie. The love story, the partnership, the shared struggle, all of it fiction. And then the shock gave way to grief. The kind of grief that comes from recognizing you have destroyed your life for an illusion. He has alienated his family, probably permanently. He has damaged his reputation in his home country beyond repair. He has said things publicly about his father and brother that cannot be unsaid. And all of it was predicated on the belief that Meghan was...
Even in some of the concert bits, you saw Meghan Markle's, again, her kind of manic. I think as things get worse, she kind of gets more manic and excited about different things just to continue to push her narrative. Because we saw this a bit in her interaction with I guess it was the Nigerian Invictus Game scenes, because she's like, I love you, I love you. And it's like, okay, Meghan, you've met these people once. You've never even been to Nigeria, never even tried to go to Nigeria as far as I'm aware. Yes, you might be part Nigerian, but
worth it, that their love justified the cost. If their love was not real, then the cost was paid for nothing. Sources describe Harry as barely functional in the days following this revelation. He is not eating properly, he is not sleeping, he wanders the house at odd hours, lost in his own thoughts. The few people around him, mostly Meghan's friends and employees, do not know how to help him. Because what comfort can be offered to a man whose entire world has collapsed? He cannot call his brother. The things that have been said, the accusations made, the trust destroyed, all make that impossible. He cannot call his father without admitting that everyone was right about Meghan, that he was blinded by infatuation and made catastrophic decisions as a result. The humiliation would be unbearable. And so he is alone, truly, utterly alone, in a mansion in California surrounded by luxury and sunshine, more isolated than he has ever been in his life. The question that must be asked is what happens now, to the marriage, to the brand, to Harry himself. Can a relationship survive this kind of betrayal? Some do, certainly. People forgive infidelity for various reasons. For children, for financial security, for fear of being alone. But can Harry forgive this, knowing what it cost him to be with Meghan in the first place? And even if he could find it in himself to forgive, could he ever trust her again? Could he live with the knowledge that while he was defending her publicly, fighting her battles, she was with another man? Could he function knowing that the Hollywood circles they move in all know what happened, that he is an object of pity or mockery? For Meghan, the calculus is different. If the marriage ends, she loses the royal connection that is her primary claim to relevance. She becomes Meghan Markle, former actress and former Duchess, rather than the Duchess of Sussex. Her brand value diminishes significantly, but she also gains freedom to pursue whatever relationships or opportunities she chooses without the baggage of an increasingly troubled husband. Costner, in all likelihood, will emerge unscathed. Powerful men in Hollywood generally do. There will be a brief scandal, some tabloid coverage, and then it will fade. His career will continue. His reputation may take a minor hit, but nothing that will have lasting impact. But Harry has no soft landing. Every option before him now involves pain, humiliation, or both. Stay with Meghan and live as a cuckolded prince, the subject of endless speculation and pity. Divorce her and face a brutal public battle, likely losing primary custody of his children and whatever remaining credibility he has. Or attempt to return to Britain, admit he was catastrophically wrong about everything, and beg for forgiveness from the family he betrayed. There is no good choice. There is only the least terrible option, and even that is hard to identify. Tonight, as reports of his breakdown circulate, one cannot help but feel a measure of sympathy for Harry, even while recognizing his complicity in his own downfall. He made bad choices, certainly. He trusted the wrong person, absolutely. But he did so believing he was choosing love, choosing happiness, choosing freedom. Prince Harry, the once vibrant, charismatic heir to the British throne, is tonight reportedly emotionally destroyed. Shattered. The word used by those who have seen him is broken, and it is not used lightly. This is a complete psychological collapse brought on by revelations that Kevin Costner, the Hollywood legend, has exposed what sources describe as an ongoing intimate relationship with Meghan Markle. An affair conducted in secret, hidden behind charity events and business meetings, carried out while Harry publicly defended his wife against all criticism. The cruelty of this moment is almost biblical in its scope. Harry did not simply marry Meghan, he rebuilt his entire existence around her. She became his purpose, his identity, his reason for every controversial decision. And if these allegations prove accurate, that foundation was rotten from the very beginning. Let us examine how we arrived at this devastating juncture. The path to this moment was paved with decisions that, at the time, Harry presented as courageous acts of independence. But looking back with the harsh clarity that scandal provides, they appear less like acts of courage, and more like the systematic isolation of a man being separated from every source of support and alternative perspective he possessed. Consider the timeline with fresh eyes. Harry meets Meghan in the summer of 2016. Within months, the relationship is public. Within a year and a half, they are married. The speed alone should have raised questions, but it was presented as passionate romance, as love that could not wait. Royal courtships had historically been longer, more measured, precisely to ensure compatibility and to allow both parties to understand what they were entering into. But Harry and Meghan were in a hurry. Why the rush? At the time, it seemed romantic. Now one might wonder whether speed served a purpose. Whether longer courtship might have allowed Harry's family and friends more opportunity to raise concerns, to point out warning signs, to encourage caution. Instead, the relationship moved at such velocity that by the time anyone could formulate serious objections, wedding invitations were already printed. The wedding itself was a spectacle designed to make criticism impossible. It was framed as a progressive moment, a modernization of an ancient institution. To question Meghan or the relationship was to mark yourself as backwards, as possibly racist, as hostile to change. It was a brilliant piece of narrative control. Any legitimate concerns about compatibility, about Meghan's understanding of royal life, about the sustainability of the relationship, were preemptively painted as bigotry. And so the wedding proceeded. The world watched. And Harry, standing at that altar, believed he was beginning the greatest chapter of his life. He had no idea he was actually signing away everything that had previously defined him. The troubles began almost immediately, though they were carefully hidden from public view initially. Staff members began leaving their positions. Not the usual turnover, but a pattern of departures that insiders found alarming. Reports circulated privately of a working environment that had become toxic, of unreasonable demands and emotional volatility. But these reports were kept internal, handled discreetly as the palace always handles such matters. Meghan, meanwhile, was reportedly struggling with the constraints of royal life. The protocols, the hierarchies, the understanding that she was not the star but a supporting player in an institution far older and more important than any individual. This did not sit well with someone accustomed to being the center of attention, to controlling her own narrative, to operating on her own terms. And Harry, caught between his wife's unhappiness and his family's expectations, made his choice. He chose Meghan, not just in that moment, but in every moment that followed. Every time there was a conflict between what Meghan wanted and what the institution required, Harry sided with his wife. Every time there was a dispute between Meghan's version of events and anyone else's, Harry believed Meghan unconditionally. This would have been admirable if Meghan had been operating in good faith, if her complaints were legitimate, if she was genuinely trying to make the situation work. But the pattern that emerged suggests something else entirely. Every conflict seemed designed to increase Harry's dependence on Meghan, to isolate him further from his support systems, to position her as his only true ally in a hostile world. Classic manipulation tactics, if one examines them objectively. Create conflict between your target and their family. Position yourself as the only one who truly understands them. Frame every criticism of you as an attack on them. Gradually isolate them until you are their entire world. And Harry, traumatized by the loss of his mother, desperate for unconditional love, psychologically vulnerable, walked right into the trap. The departure from royal duties was presented as a mutual decision, a quest for privacy and mental health. But examining it now, it served a very specific purpose. It removed Harry from the physical proximity of his family, from the daily interactions with people who had known him his entire life, from the structures and advisors who might have provided alternative perspectives to Meghan's narrative. They relocated to California, to Meghan's home territory, where every friend, every connection, every professional relationship was hers. Harry knew no one. He had no independent support network. He was entirely dependent on Meghan for his social connections, his professional opportunities, his very understanding of the world he now inhabited. And then came the monetization. The Oprah interview was not just a tell-all, it was a calculated destruction of Harry's last remaining bridges to his former life. The allegations made in that interview ensured that reconciliation with his family would be nearly impossible. Whether by design or happy accident, it locked Harry into—
You're not like getting on a plane and immediately flying over there and trying to connect. It just seems like more of a stunt than anything. And that's, I mean, the whole Invictus Games, at least from the Meghan Markle standpoint, seemed like a giant publicity stunt with the fashion, with the actions, with, you know, trying once again to sell that her and Harry are in love. If people who are really in love and truly in love don't need to sell it because they experience it. So why do they need to sell it to other people? They know it. They don't have to perform it. They don't have to be performative about it. They're it. They're it. That's all there is. They're just not, doesn't need to be anything else. So Harry and Meghan's very performative aspect, I think, just highlights how
his new life by making return to his old one unthinkable. The Netflix series and the book Spare continued this pattern. Each revelation, each private conversation made public, each family secret exposed, drove the wedge deeper between Harry and the Windsors. And through it all, Meghan was there, supportive, encouraging, helping him tell his truth. But whose truth was really being told, and who benefited most from the telling? Harry believed he was healing, finding his voice, breaking free from generational trauma. But perhaps he was actually being used as a weapon against an institution that had rejected Meghan's attempts to reshape it in her image. Perhaps his pain was being monetized, his family relationships commodified, his royal connection exploited for every possible dollar. And where was Meghan while Harry was pouring his heart out in therapy sessions that would become Netflix content, while he was writing painful memories that would become best-selling chapters? According to these new allegations, she was with Kevin Costner, building relationships that had nothing to do with Harry, cultivating connections in a Hollywood world where Harry was more hindrance than help, where his bitterness and baggage made him an awkward fit. Costner represents everything Harry is not. He is Hollywood royalty on his own merits. He needs no external validation, no borrowed credibility. He has power, influence, and respect earned over decades of work. For Meghan, whose ambitions in Hollywood have always been transparent, Costner is a far more valuable connection than a disgruntled prince whose primary talent seems to be complaining about his privileged upbringing. The alleged affair reportedly began during a period when Harry was particularly consumed with his legal battles against the British press. He has spent millions of pounds, countless hours, and enormous emotional energy fighting newspapers, determined to punish them for their coverage of Meghan. Meanwhile, if these reports are accurate, Meghan was conducting a relationship that would generate headlines far more damaging than anything the tabloids ever published. The irony is almost too painful to contemplate. Harry, fighting to protect Meghan's reputation, while she allegedly destroys it herself. Harry, seeking justice for perceived wrongs against his wife, while she commits an actual wrong against him. Harry, isolated and obsessed with battles against external enemies, while the real betrayal was happening in his own home. When the truth emerged, reportedly through Costner's own indiscretion, Harry's world collapsed. Not slowly, not gradually, but all at once. Because this was not just infidelity. It was the revelation that everything he had believed about his life for the past 6 years might be false. If Meghan could lie about this, what else had she lied about? Were the complaints about the royal family genuine, or were they manufactured to justify the exit she wanted anyway? Were the allegations of racism real, or were they strategic weapons deployed to make criticism impossible? Was her love for Harry ever authentic, or was he always just a means to an end? These questions are destroying Harry because there are no good answers. Either Meghan loved him and betrayed him, which is devastating, or she never loved him at all and has been using him for years, which is somehow even worse. There is no version of this story where Harry is not the victim of a profound deception. The breakdown when it came was reportedly total. Not anger, though anger would come later. Not denial, though he tried that first. But a complete emotional and psychological collapse. The kind that happens when every assumption you have built your life upon is simultaneously disproven. Harry is crying, sources say, but not the way men usually cry. Not controlled, not restrained, but the way children cry when they are truly hurt and truly alone. Sobbing that shakes the entire body. Grief that cannot be contained or managed. The utter desolation of a man who has lost everything and is only now realizing the full extent of what is gone. He cannot go home. He cannot call William and admit that every terrible thing his brother probably thought about Meghan was correct. He cannot face his father and acknowledge that the institution he so publicly attacked was not the villain of his story. He cannot return to Britain, where his book is still in stores, where his Netflix series still streams, where every criticism he made of his family is documented and permanent. But he also cannot stay where he is. He cannot remain married to a woman who, if these allegations are true, has humiliated him in the most profound way possible. He cannot live in Montecito, where everyone in their social circle knows what happened, where he will be an object of pity at best and mockery at worst. He cannot continue the Sussex brand, which was built entirely on the foundation of their authentic love story. Every path forward is blocked. Every option involves humiliation, loss, and pain. Harry is trapped in a situation entirely of his own making, and yet he is also a victim of manipulation so skilled that he never saw it coming. The tragedy of Prince Harry is that he wanted so desperately to be loved unconditionally that he made himself vulnerable to someone who saw that desperation and exploited it. He wanted so badly to escape the shadow of his brother, the constraints of his birth, the tragedy of his childhood, that he ran toward anyone who promised him freedom. And Meghan promised him exactly that. But freedom from structure is not the same as freedom. And escaping one cage only to enter another, more subtle one, is not liberation. It is just a different form of imprisonment. Tonight, Harry is discovering that the prison he built for himself in California, constructed from burned bridges and severed relationships and public betrayals, is far more confining than the palace ever was. Because at least the palace had rules, structures, people who cared about him beyond what he could provide them. In Montecito, he has none of that. He has only Meghan, and if these allegations are true, he does not even really have her. He has only the illusion of her, the performance she has been giving for years, the character she plays when he is watching. And now the performance has been exposed, the curtain has been pulled back, and Harry is left staring at the reality of his situation, with no remaining illusions to comfort him. This is not merely a scandal, this is a complete annihilation of identity. Harry defined himself through his relationship with Meghan. He made decisions, burned bridges, and rebuilt his entire existence around that relationship. If the relationship was false, then who is he? What has the past 6 years of his life been for? These are the questions that are breaking him, not the infidelity itself, though that is painful enough, but the existential crisis that comes from realizing you have destroyed yourself for an illusion. The coming weeks will reveal whether Harry has any capacity to rebuild from this devastation, whether he can find some path forward that allows him to salvage anything from the wreckage of his life, whether reconciliation with his family is even remotely possible, or whether that door is permanently closed. But tonight there is only wreckage, only tears, only a prince who gave up a kingdom for love and discovered too late that the love was never real. Kevin Costner, the acclaimed actor whose career spans 4 decades of American cinema, has allegedly exposed a secret affair with Meghan Markle. And with that exposure, the carefully constructed Sussex mythology has not merely cracked, it has shattered into irreparable fragments. Harry is reportedly inconsolable, beyond tears, beyond anger. He exists now in that terrible space where a human being confronts the possibility that their entire life has been built on quicksand, and the ground is finally giving way beneath them. Let us be absolutely clear about what is at stake here. This is not simply about marital infidelity, though that alone would be devastating enough. This is about the complete invalidation of every choice Harry has made since the moment Meghan Markle entered his life. Every sacrifice, every severed relationship, every public statement, every burned bridge. If the foundation was corrupt, then the entire structure collapses. And the foundation, according to these allegations, was very corrupt indeed. To properly understand this moment, we must revisit the construction of the Sussex narrative with clear eyes, unclouded by the romance and victimhood that have characterized their public presentation. From the very beginning, there were elements that did not quite add up, inconsistencies that were overlooked or explained away, red flags that were ignored in the rush to celebrate a modern fairy tale. Meghan presented herself as someone largely ignorant of the royal family. She claimed in interviews to have known little about them before meeting Harry, to have been unaware of the significance of what she was entering. This always strained credulity. She was an educated woman in her 30s, working in entertainment, engaged with popular culture. The idea that she had no meaningful knowledge of one of the world's most famous families seemed implausible, but it served a narrative purpose. It made her seem innocent, unprepared for the cruelty that would come, a victim of circumstances she could not have anticipated. But if she knew more than she let on, if the ignorance was performed rather than genuine, then her entire entry into royal life takes on a different character. It becomes strategic rather than spontaneous, calculated rather than romantic. Similarly, the speed of the relationship and engagement was presented as evidence of true love, of a connection so powerful it could not be delayed. But speed also prevents scrutiny. It creates momentum that is difficult to stop. It places critics in the position of trying to slow down a freight train that has already left the station. By the time anyone could adequately assess whether this was a good idea, the wedding invitations had been sent. Harry, for his part, was the perfect target for this kind of whirlwind romance. He was approaching his mid-30s, still unmarried while his brother had a wife and children. He was psychologically scarred by the loss of his mother, desperately seeking the unconditional love and protection he felt she had provided. He was frustrated with his role as the spare, seeking purpose and significance beyond his birth order. And he was, by his own admission, emotionally vulnerable and not particularly self-aware. Meghan offered him everything he was searching for: understanding, passion, purpose, and a narrative where he could be the hero rather than the supporting character. She saw exactly what he needed to hear, and she provided it. Whether that was authentic or performative is the question that now haunts him. The wedding was a masterpiece of public relations. It positioned Meghan as a breath of fresh air, a modernizing force.
Much in a bad place they are in their relationship. When it comes to the mothering aspect of Meghan Markle towards Harry, this has been a long time. So we saw this as well in the polo game that Harry played in, where it was like a charity event. They did some sort of English theme, so it was like riffing off polo in England. So there were hats, like a Pretty Woman theme. It was just sort of ridiculous and very kitschy and very obviously trying to—
Woman of mixed heritage bringing diversity to an ancient institution. To criticize her was to mark yourself as resistant to progress, possibly prejudiced, certainly out of touch. This framework made legitimate criticism nearly impossible. Any observation about her conduct, her adjustment to royal life, her treatment of staff, could be dismissed as rooted in bias rather than fact. And there were things to criticize, if one was permitted to do so. The staff turnover was unprecedented. Personnel who had served the royal family for years, who were experienced in managing the demands and pressures of royal life, were leaving in unusually high numbers. Some departed in tears. Others simply vanished from their positions with no public explanation. The official line was that Meghan had high standards, that she was a perfectionist, that she was used to a different working culture. But high standards do not typically reduce experienced professionals to emotional breakdowns. Something else was happening behind the closed doors of Kensington Palace and later Frogmore Cottage. Something that those who experienced it found intolerable. But these stories were suppressed, dismissed, or explained away. And Harry, faced with accounts of his wife's behavior that contradicted his image of her, made a choice. He believed Meghan, not just in that instance, but categorically, unconditionally, absolutely. Her version of events became his version. Her enemies became his enemies. Her grievances became his crusades. This is when the isolation truly began. Not physically yet, but psychologically. Harry started to see his family, the institution, even long-serving palace staff, through Meghan's eyes rather than his own. And Meghan's perspective was that they were all obstacles, all insufficiently supportive, all part of a system designed to diminish and control her. Whether this perspective was accurate or convenient is an important question, because if the institution truly was as terrible as Meghan claimed, then their eventual departure was justified. But if the institution was simply resistant to being reshaped according to Meghan's preferences, then the conflict was one of her own creation, a manufactured crisis designed to justify a predetermined outcome. The departure itself, the infamous Megxit, was presented as a painful but necessary decision driven by concerns for mental health and physical safety. Meghan spoke of suicidal thoughts, of being denied help, of fears for her son's security. These are serious allegations that deserve serious consideration, but they also served a very specific purpose. They made departure not just acceptable but morally imperative. They positioned anyone who wanted them to stay as indifferent to Meghan's suffering, possibly even complicit in it. And so they left, not quietly, not gracefully, but with maximum drama and public impact. The announcement was made on Instagram, reportedly without full consultation with the Queen or Prince Charles. It forced the family into reactive mode, negotiating the terms of departure under the pressure of global media attention. The eventual settlement stripped them of their royal duties but left them with their titles. They would be financially independent, pursuing their own ventures, living wherever they chose. And they chose California, not Canada, which had been mentioned initially, not anywhere in the Commonwealth, but California, the heart of the entertainment industry, Meghan's home territory. And this is where the alleged affair with Kevin Costner becomes particularly significant. Because once in California, Meghan was no longer a duchess trying to navigate royal life. She was an ambitious woman with a royal title trying to conquer Hollywood. And Harry, bitter about his family, obsessed with his grievances, psychologically damaged and dependent, was less an asset and more a liability. Costner offered something Harry could not: genuine Hollywood credibility, decades of relationships in the industry, a reputation built on talent rather than birthright. For Meghan, whose attempts to re-establish herself as a force in entertainment have been notably unsuccessful, Costner represented a potential shortcut to the relevance she craves. The alleged affair was conducted, sources say, with remarkable operational security. Meetings were disguised as professional consultations. Visits to Costner's ranch were framed as discussions about environmental initiatives or potential collaborations. Meghan's calendar was managed to ensure Harry had no reason for suspicion, and Costner's discretion was apparently total. Until it was not, the exposure came, we are told, not through investigative journalism or surveillance but through simple human carelessness. Costner, speaking with someone he trusted, made a reference that was more revealing than he intended. That person spoke to another. The circle widened, and eventually the information reached someone who understood its significance and was willing to make it public. Costner, when confronted, apparently did not deny the relationship. Whether this was honesty or arrogance is unclear, but his confirmation made the story impossible to dismiss as baseless rumor. It was real, it had happened, and Harry's world imploded. The confrontation between Harry and Meghan is described by sources as one of the most painful scenes imaginable. Harry, holding evidence he could not dismiss, demanding truth from a woman who has spent years shaping narratives to her advantage. Meghan, cornered in a way she has never been before, unable to control the story or redirect the blame. What explanations could she possibly offer? That she was lonely, that Harry was too damaged, too obsessed with his past, too unavailable emotionally, that Costner understood her in ways Harry could not. Any explanation is simultaneously an admission and an insult, an acknowledgement of betrayal and a suggestion that Harry deserved it. And Harry, hearing whatever explanations were offered, faced the cascading realization of what this meant. Not just that his wife had been unfaithful, but that perhaps she had never been faithful. Not to him, but to the project of herself. That he was always a supporting character in her story, useful for a time, but ultimately replaceable. The tears, when they came, were reportedly unlike anything those around him had witnessed. Not the controlled emotion of a public figure managing their image, but raw, uncontrollable grief. The grief of total loss, because Harry has lost everything now. His family, his country, his purpose, his identity, and now, the relationship that was supposed to make all those other losses worthwhile. He cannot return to his family without admitting they were right about Meghan all along. Cannot face William without acknowledging that the brother he accused of jealousy and coldness was actually trying to protect him. Cannot approach his father without confessing that the institution he publicly attacked was not the villain. Cannot return to Britain without eating every word of his book, every claim in his interviews, every accusation in the Netflix series. The humiliation would be total and public. The British press, which he has spent years vilifying and suing, would have the ultimate vindication. The public, which he accused of racism and cruelty toward Meghan, would feel justified in their skepticism. The institution, which he claimed was toxic and abusive, would be revealed as the stable structure he should never have left. But staying is equally impossible. How does he remain married to a woman who has betrayed him so profoundly? How does he live in Montecito knowing that their social circle is aware of what happened? How does he continue the Sussex brand when the brand was built entirely on the authenticity of their love story? Every option is unthinkable. Every path forward requires a level of humiliation or pain that seems unbearable. And so Harry is paralyzed, trapped in the wreckage of his life, unable to move in any direction. The breakdown is not temporary emotional distress. It is a fundamental collapse of identity and purpose. Harry built his entire post-royal existence around Meghan. She was his interpreter of reality, his guide in a new world, his justification for every controversial decision. Without her, or rather, without the version of her he believed in, he has nothing. He is nearly 40 years old with no clear profession. He is a prince who renounced his duties. He is a soldier who gave up his military affiliations. He is a son and brother who destroyed those relationships publicly and repeatedly. He is a husband whose wife allegedly betrayed him with a Hollywood icon. What is left? Who is Harry without all the things he has lost or thrown away? These existential questions are what is destroying him. The affair is the trigger, but the real crisis is the recognition of total life failure. Every major decision he has made since meeting Meghan has been catastrophically wrong, and there is no path back, no way to undo the damage, no possibility of restoration. Costner will move on with minimal consequence. Powerful men always do. Meghan will likely reinvent herself somehow, finding a new narrative, a new project, a new source of relevance. She has proven herself remarkably resilient and adaptable, capable of turning even scandal into opportunity. But Harry has no such skills. He has spent his life either protected by institutional structures or guided by Meghan. He has never had to navigate crisis independently, never had to rebuild from nothing, never had to face the consequences of his choices without someone else to blame. And now he must do all of that while emotionally shattered, publicly humiliated, and completely alone. The reports of his current state are deeply concerning. He is described as non-functional, unable to engage with even basic responsibilities. The few people around him, primarily staff and Meghan's associates, are reportedly alarmed by his deterioration, but unsure how to help. Because what help is there for someone whose entire life has been revealed as a catastrophic mistake? Professional help, therapy, medication, all may play a role in preventing complete collapse, but none of that addresses the fundamental problem. Harry's life, as he has constructed it for the past 7 years, is over. It cannot continue, something new must be built. But he has no foundation to build on, no resources beyond money, no relationships he has not damaged or destroyed. This is the wages of his choices. This is the cost of believing Meghan without question, of prioritizing her perspective over all others, of burning every bridge in service of a relationship that may have been transactional from the start. Tonight, a prince weeps in California, and the world, which watched him fall in love, watched him marry, watched him leave his family and country, now watches him break.